just like the United Nations has been very brave in Goldstone's report in terms of Palestinian, breach of international law in Gaza, I think that the United Nations has a responsibility to investigate the mass graves and the unnamed graves in Kashmir and the disappearance of Kashmiri people. Once we have that, then we can move forward and we can start then talking about this Aman ki Asha. Otherwise, unless we deal with the core issue of Kashmir, there will never be peace. I do not believe that there is. I think that whilst, I don't know, I can't say, but it might be that there is funding available from the West for major publishers in India and Pakistan to publish these type of things. But unless you deal with the real issue, we are not going to do it just by adverts and by a few statements. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was our host, Lord Ahmed, and who better to take the baton than Lord Ahmed. And I, as an objective observer, have to say that since Lord Ahmed became chair of this Committee on Kashmir, more work has happened in the last 6 weeks than we envisaged over a number of years. So I hope he carries on the stern pressure and does well for the Kashmiri cause. Can I introduce our next guest, who has to leave, and therefore I'm going to ask him to come first. He's Robert Flello, the Member of Parliament for Stoke-on-Trent. He's also the Parliamentary Private Secretary for the Secretary of State for Defence. Without any further ado, can I invite Rob to talk on the issue of Kashmir?
Thanks very much indeed. Thank you. Salam alaikum. Welcome to High Commissioner, Deputy High Commissioner, Professor Hassan Iqbal, and distinguished guests. Delighted to be here this afternoon, and just echoing the comments about more has happened in the last few weeks. I think it's absolutely right. I seem to remember, I think it was about this time last week, we were in a meeting with Barrister Sultan Mahmood Chowdhury, and a very interesting meeting that was as well. As a result of that, indeed, I've written to the Foreign Secretary asking for a conference, a formal conference on Kashmir along the lines of the Afghan conference that I think was so successful the other week. I just want to make a couple of points really. The first is in terms of this country, and in my constituency of Stoke-on-Trent South, I have a community of about 2,000 people who can trace their ancestry back to Pakistan and indeed for many to the Kashmir region. And they are a peaceful, moderate, law-abiding, great community who care passionately about their future, their children's future, but also about Kashmir's future and what's happening over there and what has happened historically, but what can hopefully be done for the future. And I think it's one of those issues that transcends many things. If you heard the Foreign Secretary's statement to the House about the Afghan conference, you will have heard him say that critical and crucial for the region is the stability of the countries around Afghanistan. And obviously you cannot have stability in Afghanistan, and indeed stability anywhere in that region, in the region we're talking about, unless Kashmir is resolved, unless there is peace, a lasting resolution to the conflicts, to the problems, the historical errors that were made in actually dividing, partitioning between India and Pakistan and creating the problems of Kashmir. And I certainly hope that we can get some form of conference together to actually address this in a way that all parties can properly look at the matter. Just finally, a couple of points, and forgive me, I then do need to go on to another meeting, but I think it was such an important that I come along here as much as I can at the speeches today. I want to make sure that there was a slot in my diary to do so. I think one of the issues that for me speaks very highly about the whole problems that we have in and around Kashmir is the problems that are besetting not just Afghanistan but Pakistan with the Taliban. And the problem of terrorism isn't something that is a problem for one nation. It isn't something that is a problem for indeed a couple of nations. It's something that is a problem universally. It's a problem we all have. And unless we can start to resolve some of the conflict areas around the world, be it Cyprus, be it some of the other spots, the ones that sadly are all too common to us like Palestine, unless we can start to resolve the issues like Kashmir, we are never going to get to a situation where we can have any form of global peace, because there will always be something that triggers in somebody's mind the desire to do ill against their neighbour. So I think Kashmir is an issue that has to be resolved. It's something that we all have to come together on. We all have to also put aside some of our fears, distrust and difficulties with some of our neighbours in and around that region, to come together, to find a lasting solution, something that gives peace, something that gives closure to the families that Lord Ahmed quite rightly said, who have lost loved ones over many years, don't know how to properly mourn that loss because they don't know where the bodies of their loved ones are. Until we can get those sort of closures, we're not going to get any chance of a global peace, and that's something that we must all work towards, and inshallah one day we will have. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rob. Can I now take this opportunity to welcome a long-standing friend of Pakistan and Kashmir, someone who's been a parliamentarian for over 40 years, was in the opposition shadow government, shadow foreign secretary, our very dear friend Gerald Kaufman. And I hasten to say, when I was a young lad, and I'm not giving your age away, being a Yorkshire lad, I used to watch Gerald on Question Time with Robin Day at that time. Was it Robin Day with the bow tie on? And I used to think, what an articulate chap, I wish I was in his position. But clearly I've not got there yet. I've got more hair than Gerald has. But on a serious note, I think you're a good role model for everyone, especially minority communities, someone who's done so well and achieved so well. But I'm proud that you're a friend of Pakistan and Kashmir and look forward to hearing you later today. Can I next welcome another parliamentarian, another friend of, a very good friend of Pakistan and Kashmir, our good fellow parliamentarian John Hemming from Birmingham Yardley. John, do you want to say a few words?
Yeah, do you want the microphone? Yeah, they just pass them on, we have those around the radio mics. Thank you. Okay.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, fellow parliamentarians, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. I'm pleased to be here. Well, actually, we were next door last week, weren't we? I think I've just come from a meeting which was called Make War History, and basically this particular all-party parliamentary group is based around the concept that we need to strengthen international law and strengthen international humanitarian law and look for that as a mechanism for dealing with peace, because you don't get peace without justice. As Lord Ahmed said, you cannot get peace without justice. And peace, justice and peace and security all go together. You can't actually get security without justice. And this is the point about terrorism, that in asymmetric conflicts people strike out, and that doesn't mean it's right, but they strike out, and they create great anger by doing so, even if they don't have much of an effect. But the reality is, unless you deal with the injustice first, you will have those tensions, and people's emotional desire for revenge will get the better of their hearts, in that sense, get the better of their heads, and they strike out. And you can see in the history of Sri Lanka where things have happened like that, and it creates great misery. But the solution rests in getting justice, and what I said to Lord Ahmed about last week was critically we need to make sure that there are investigations into the graves that have been found. That's an absolutely crucial thing. I cited an example, it's quite interesting in the news I think today, that it appears that Israel changed the rules of engagement in the war in Gaza to deprioritise protecting civilians, and that is absolutely, that's the nub of what they were doing there. We've developed international humanitarian law over many years to try to make sure that when a battle continues, the hatreds die down after a period of time. When you start doing what Israel did in Gaza, that is not a way towards peace at all, and without peace you don't get security. So what they're doing is a big mistake. What they did was a big mistake. Again, as I said last week, I worked with a group in Birmingham collecting evidence as to what was going on in Gaza, and that's been passed as a dossier to the International Criminal Court, and we thought it was quite important to do the contemporaneous work. And I've offered to do the same with Lord Ahmed's office in respect of Kashmir, because it is important. Yes, it's a good idea, I think, to have a conference, but you also need to make sure there's work going on all the time. Because if you don't have work going on to move towards justice, you haven't got people focusing on how the international bodies that exist, however flawed they may be. And I must admit, I share Lord Ahmed's concern, the idea that that India, which doesn't obey the Security Council resolutions, should become a member of the body that it takes no notice of. I think that's a bit of an absurd proposal. But I think that the message that I would always give out is I wish to see strengthening of international humanitarian law, international law and human rights. It's about, if you want peace, you've got to have justice, and therefore we must fight for justice.
Thank you.